Hello everyone, and welcome to my first podcast of 2026. I know that you'll thoroughly enjoy today's conversation as I welcome the new year with my good friend, actor, producer, writer, family man, Blue Peter daredevil, adventurer and former Chief Scout. It is, of course, Peter Duncan. Peter, wonderful to see you, and you're looking extremely well.
What a sweet thing to say. Always compliment a fellow actor.
Well, it's the nice way to start anything, because it means that we start off on a cheerful note, whatever happens afterwards.
Yes.
I have researched quite a lot about you and know quite a bit about you, and you sent me a wonderful little biog which condensed a lot of the things that I knew into a very few sentences, which is quite brilliant. But one thing I didn't know, and where I'm going to start, is you were virtually born in a trunk, weren't you? In a suitcase.
Yes, a bit of a Judy Garland, yes. If I can say that. I was, yeah, no, my parents, yes. I was been, actually, because I knew I was going to talk to you today, I was thinking about it this morning, about those early beginnings and how they influence what you do in later life. And I think that for my kids as well, like, what is it that makes them become, or influences the things that they become? And certainly with my mum and dad, my dad was a struggling. He was always a performer from quite a young age. Came from Redcar, and then he met my mum in Villiers Street in London. She came and auditioned for him with her sister, because apparently he was a bit of a wolf, so-called. This is the way to let him go. And they came and he offered her a job. And she at the time, I'm going through all the detail of it, she at the time was going out with a rather big rugby player, but he was smitten by her, fell in love with her, and used to follow her around despite the threats. And eventually they got together and got married in 1953. I came along in 54, long time ago. And then they were struggling showbiz people. He used to put on all kinds of presentational shows. He was a kind of a compere to begin with. He was what you call well, he was a funny man. He when he did his pantomimes, he was the empathetic funny man. And my mum began as Principal Girl and Principal Boy, and she used to sing songs in the summer seasons, particularly down on the south coast. And so that's the world, my little world that I grew up in. And I remember very much those early days, when I was tiny. And I always pretend I can imagine lying in an open cot in the wings, which is probably true. But yes, I was there. And every summer they'd go off for their summer seasons, some successful, some not. And I would go with them as a child. And then I would come back to school late, back to where we lived in South London, Beckenham. We were born in Chelsea. I was born in Chelsea, but we moved to sort of South London quite soon. And it's just imbued my life, really, those memories. And
it's interesting that you talk about your father being heavily involved in pantomime, because you're rather an expert at that, and we will talk about that a little bit later on. Because I always felt I started quite early in the business. My father had been a professional singer as a boy soprano. He didn't carry on as a professional when his voice broke. So there was an element of showbiz in me. But I started when I was 18. My first professional job was in a repertory theatre in Barrow-in-Furness during my school holidays. And I thought, well, I started early, and my career's spread almost 7 decades. I know your spread is 5, and it'll grow.
5,
it'll carry on.
2 to catch up on.
So, as I say, I thought I started early, but you were way before me. Tell me what was your first work? Because I always felt I knew you long before I met you, because you were in a song and dance group with my wife, in fact, the second generation on television.
At the London Palladium. Yes, we were both very young then, and it was the Bruce Forsyth Spectacular. And it's because in 1973 I'd done Peter Pan with Lulu, which Dougie Squires, the director of the second generation, had done. And he said to me, "Do you want to come?" And I mean, I wasn't. I'd done a few classes. I wasn't really a hoofer, really at all. And I think it was a twinkle in his eye, really. It wasn't.
But you could wing it, could you?
Just about, yes. I mean, yes. I mean, it was a strange experience. I mean, I loved it. I was a swing dancer, which is, don't take that the wrong way, but a swing dancer is somebody that steps in for lots of different performers who were going off and doing other things. Of course, that's very difficult to do. You've got to be a really good dancer because you're in a different place doing different steps sometimes. I was pretty rubbish, really, pretty rubbish. I'm sure Kathy, when she thinks back, will remember that it didn't go well. I remember carrying the famous Wei Wei Wong across the stage in a sort of fish position, wafting across the large Palladium stage. She wasn't happy about that. I could barely lift up. I wasn't overweight. I just wasn't strong enough.
Of course, all this happened before Blue Peter, which we will be getting on to. But in fact, Blue Peter was quite a small part of your life, but I suppose it's had a very big influence on your life.
Yes, it has, Blue Peter. I mean, I know you say sometimes, we are we bitter and twisted actors and think we should have had better careers because we went off and did Blue Peter. But for me, when Blue Peter came along, it was a sort of, I needed that opportunity to do something more outgoing, something different, and something a bit purposeful, really, I felt with it. But when I started at 15, I was 11 years a proper actor, getting quite a good career going and doing all kinds of things, films and TV and plays. And I was at the Old Vic in Olivier's company. So I was very, as we say, as actors, very legit in the early days.
And very experienced. You were gaining great experience all the time.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I remember my audition for Frank Dunlop, another wonderful man who's still alive extraordinarily. He's much even older than you, Pete.
He must be nearly 100, I would think.
Well, yeah, and he was fantastic. He cast me in The White Devil, and I stayed at the National for about 2.5 years, playing lots of different parts and things. And that was my real proper theatre kickoff, working for him and John Dexter. and it was just so exciting to be there with Olivier, Paul Schofield, Derek Jacobi, who I saw the other day at a thing called Comic Con. You know what Comic Con is, where you go along and sign autographs. And there he was. We talked about both being in a play called The White Devil in 1971, where we had these big bricks that used to roll about the stage on a high level, always used to knock the actors off into the audience. It's very funny. And he laughed and remembered. Bright as a button he was.
Yeah, of course, he's been in Doctor Who, which sort of gave a late boost, if you like, to his career. But I mean, as if he needed it.
I didn't know that. He certainly, it's very funny. I explained to folks that when you do these Comic Con, I don't do them very often. I think you do them occasionally.
I do them occasionally. I don't like them very much, but
no.
They're a bit of a bit soulless.
Yes, it's nice when you get to talk to people, and people are more genuine you think they're going to be. But the funny thing is that you're all the celebs from different ages are all in lines, and you're facing each other, and you get really peed off if someone's got a long queue. Your mate Colin Baker came over. Sorry, you've got a long queue.
I was going to say that and of course you were familiar with Colin because you worked with him. I'm not sure if that was before Blue Peter or after, but you did a play with him.
We did. It was way after. Yeah, for Kenny Wax, it was a play that was on tour. Yes, yeah, it was good. The name leaves me now. I should know. I played twins, identical twins. What was it called? It was very good. I put a fake biog in the program for one of the twins. It shows what a good actor I am. And people come up and say, "God, isn't it extraordinary? You got a twin. You and your twin, can be in this play together."
How very odd, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about Blue Peter, because you came into that, and I'm sure you were cast as a replacement for John Noakes, because John had been, the all action man all the time I was in the program. He did slightly more daring things, extraordinary things. I did a few myself, but mainly he was given those things. And it was an element of the program that the audience really liked. And I believe that they were looking for a replacement, and it turned out to be you.
Yes, it was. It was. I'd done lots of TVs in the 70s, as I said. And I'd just done a TV series with my best pal, Leslie Manville, and it was called King Cinder, which was about Speedway. And again, it was kind of quite a heroic role to play because you had to ride the bikes and do stuff. And it was very popular. It was on the BBC. And
I've done that, by the way. I did a Blue Peter film on Speedway.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's good. Go around the corners. Go around the corners a bit. Letting it go. Yeah, letting the back wheel spin out and accelerating as you go into the corner takes a bit of bottle sometimes. I'm not sure I quite cracked now.
I fell off.
Yes, no, I fell off several times. And then Biddy said, well, not her director, or maybe it was director, said, would you come and audition? And I did. I'd had very little intention of probably doing it then, but I did as you probably talked about before, the classic Blue Peter audition where you make something, jump down on the trampoline and try and be personable and nice, and it's your own natural personality that they want to see, as well as whether you're capable of doing things. I think Biddy, because I had such a fragmentary education, I think she thought I was a bit dumb, but she was wrong. And I remember being invited to watch you and John Noakes I was up in the gallery with them, and I think by then I'd been offered the part, and they were tempting me to be in it. And I think John had planned to leave by then, and I'm up in the gallery, and I decided, and I dearest Biddy, I know she's no longer with us, but I've decided, something about me said, this is too tough. I'm not sure I could cope with this, really, because she was a tough character, which I became to admire later on, to cut to the quick. But
this is Biddy, of course, Biddy Baxter.
Yeah. And I turned it down, really. That was in 1978, decided not to do it because I've, like you, I think in the past, thought that, I probably won't be able to get much decent acting work if I do it for a time. So I said no. And that was it. So that was the start of my non-Blue Peter career. And then a couple of years later, the guy that they did pick didn't. I'm not sure he didn't work out, but they wanted to change, and he left. And on a whim, she phoned me up and said, "Do you want to do it now?" And I remember going to Mallorca with a girlfriend, and I thought, I've got 2 weeks to think about this. Am I or am I not going to do it? And I kind of relaxed and thought about it. And then I came back and said yes. So 1980, September, I started.
As a replacement for John, which it sounds awful saying that, really, but in that role, you really made it your own. I remember, of course, that we worked together in 2018, so I'm jumping well ahead, when we did a play up at the Edinburgh Festival, and which was written by Tim Whitnall, and it was you and me, and it was Janet Ellis, and it was Mark Curry, and it was Tim Vincent who actually put the whole thing together, and it was written by Tim Whitnall, and it was a great piece, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. And there was an element in there, in that story, because it was about us, nearly us, but that was the real you doing the cleaning the face of Big Ben, which I know that from social media and stuff, the number of comments I get about how people respected you for being so brilliant in doing that. That was an extraordinary feat, and it was the start of many really extraordinary things that you did.
Yeah, well, I used to enjoy the daring do stuff. I always, as a kid, liked to climb up things, and certainly because it comes back as social media, isn't like a next generation sees the sort of what people would regard as reckless and no health and safety. But yes, and that, to be honest, cleaning Big Ben's clock face was my first day on the job, filming job, really. So I think they'd stored up that one, and they had the right guys to help me over the edge. give me a chamois leather and a bucket, get cleaning. So I did enjoy that. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I knew I was taking over from Noxie in that respect. I think that was the idea. But I was not. I was really not good in the. I didn't have the brain in the studio because, as you know, there was no auto cues in those days. Or there
No, well,
was
Biddy would never allowed auto cue. That was no.
I think she was right, really. But
Yes,
you
so do I.
needed to, get that script the night before. You needed to have a certain kind of brain, which I didn't have at the start. I didn't have the brain to accumulate coherent language and communicate the next day at 5 o'clock. I got a lot of, I can say a rude word, a lot of bollockings. I got.
I think we all did.
But I didn't mind it. I was there because I wanted to be there, and I loved the trips and I loved the daring do's. And once you get in the groove, God, it's exciting. It's like live theatre. 5 o'clock, big studio, sometimes hundreds of people. You're kind of along with the others, the main people in it. It's great fun. Great.
It is. I mean, I regard it as a real highlight of mine. But of course, I was in it very much longer than most people. I did nearly 11 years in it, which was probably too long. And it's you said earlier that you were worried back in 1978 that if you took the job, you wouldn't get acting job. Well, I couldn't get back into acting. No one wanted to know. It's the only regret I've got in my life, really, that I didn't really get back into acting. I have no real regrets because it was great fun. But it did stop one element. And I'm not sure, people thought maybe I wasn't any good. I don't know. But it was one thing I really wanted to get back into, and I never got offered anything, no acting work at all.
It's tricky because I think it's a bit to do with fortune that if you do have a career, and I do have a career as an actor afterwards, and I think it was basically down to my musical background because as I said, grew up with my parents. I've always been a very musical person, written songs, sort of been, dreamt of being a pop star, sort of, and then when I got, well, actually, what really happened was that I did Blue Peter just for 3 years, and then I decided to leave quite short, for 3.5 years. And then I left again, and they got someone else in again, lovely Michael Sandin, and he left. And they said, do you want to come back? And I'd already kind of left and gone back to do acting. So I thought, well, can't be any worse. And then after that, I got really into musical theatre. And I think musical theatre, although I did straight plays as well, musical theatre is outside, a bit like pantomime. You always get pantomimes maybe, and if you can sing and tell a story, you'll get musical theatre roles. And I think that's sort of what saved me with the acting genes, really, for a while.
Well, you had the background of the dancing that you say you were bad at, and and the singing, which I know you were quite good at, with the second generation, because it was a song and dance group, wasn't it?
Yes, I wouldn't say I did much contribute. I'm thinking more about those musicals where you really have to, you're playing a Barnum or a Bill Snibson or the Card, which I was in, which you're on all the time and you're singing songs, you're being funny, whatever the character is, you're being it. It completely absorbs you for your 2.5 hours, and they are great. They're Shakespearean in their size, and so I always feel good about having done that stuff.
Well, I think the Blue Peter daredevil element really came out that you played Barnum, because that required massive circus skills. And going back to your early life in the theatre, did you have circus training?
No, I did. When I got to do Barnum the first time, it was in a tent and in Shepherd's Bush Green.
I remember. I saw you there.
Absolute disaster. And the producers were, I think, ended up in prison. And I did learn a thing called the cloud swing, which is probably the most dangerous thing I've ever done, which is just a rope that hangs from 2 points, and you sit on it like a swing, and you can just sit on it and swing, but you do stunts on it. You wrap it around your feet, you get to the top of the apex and you fly out and you fly underneath it. It's almost certain death if you fall off. So
is that called the slack wire?
No, slack wire is like a tightrope that's a small.
Oh, right, understood.
Wire. It is like a slack wire, but it's more of a loop. and you swing on it like a big swing, but without a seat. It's very continental. I think I saw a couple of French guys do it, but I learned to do that, and that takes you have to start with a safety wire on you as well, because you do fall off when you start doing it. But eventually, it's difficult to do with a safety wire because you're swinging, almost 90 degrees back and forth. And
wow,
yeah. So I always got into doing stuff like that, and then I did obviously do tightrope walking in Barnum, which I've still got my own little tightrope in my little wood down there, which I stare at but don't go on very much.
It's an extraordinary thing, balance. I mean, I did a lot of rock climbing films when I was on Blue Peter, but I got no balance. I mean, it's amazing. I loved rock climbing. I thought it was great. I used to do it long before I joined Blue Peter. I used to go up into the Lake District and climbed with friends, climbing most of the crags, having a wonderful time. And yeah, it's scary stuff, but I loved it. But I never had balance. I can remember at school, do you remember those sort of benches that they had in very, sort of primary school, which you could turn upside down and they would leave a sort of 4-inch bar which you could actually walk along.
I think I do. Yeah.
I think most schools have.
Sturdy, weren't they? Yeah.
I couldn't even walk across those without falling off. I never could. I had terrible balance. It was an awful thing. I used to do stuff. We used to do quite a lot of military stuff, which I'm sure you did when you were on Blue Peter as well, with Johnny. And we would work with the young parachute regiment, and we worked with the Marines and all sorts of stuff. But doing their courses, I would fall off things. I just couldn't do it. I don't think they ever showed me falling off. They never filmed me doing that and using it. They tried to make me look as though I could do it, but I never could. My balance was terrible. If it was something small you had to walk across, I would have to crawl across it to get over. It was just that awful. And I've never really understood why. I still don't have good balance. I easily get dizzy when I stand up even. Mine, that's just old age, probably.
Well, to make you feel better, Peter, my balance has got much worse over the years.
It doesn't make me feel better at all. I want to stick with the Daredevil stuff. Now, tell me some of the other things you did on Blue Peter. You did a lot of traveling and a lot of, well, I would call scary stuff. You had to go sumo wrestling on one occasion, I know.
Yeah, no, this is another, all the BBC archives are rolling out for all of us now. And, your life is somewhat, when something goes a bit viral, as they say, your life is somewhat dominated by something that happened in the distant past. And I think because all this, I don't know when they released it, because they surprised you. They don't actually phone up and say, hey, we're going to pay you for this. They must should be paying us for these. I don't know, maybe not. But they suddenly get hits and then everybody starts seeing them. When all the sumos came over to the Albert Hall, I think that's when they put that one out. And there was little me fighting the sumo wrestler in a Blue Peter expedition to Japan, which was a proper fight. It was, proper fight. He could have killed me, but, he just did.
But, I mean, you're not really the size for sumo, are you? Let's face it.
No. It is a weight thing, and that's why they have 4-hour breakfasts before they put on the weight. But it was sweet. There is a story. I don't know, but I'll try and tell it quick. So the day before we went filming, there was an Australian film crew there, and the Aussies, being the Aussies, had said, "Oh, look at these big babies in their dresses," and it's very serious sumo. And when we turned up there as the BBC with little me, this trainer had a huge bamboo stick, and unprompted, he thumped me on the back like proper whack. There was a wheel down my back.
Ouch.
And then we said, what are you doing? We're leaving. And that sort of, anyway, I said, no, I'm not going. I don't know why he did that, but let's just see what happens. And of course, in the end, you have to win them over. You have to so it became in the basho and the ring, I had to go in and be thrown, and already my knees are bleeding and my elbows, and then of course I get up, and the honor is that if you get up, do you want more? Yes, almost that's the challenge. So I got up 3 times. I didn't get up the next day.
A lot of bruises, yes, a lot of
the muscles, yeah.
I know the pantomime season is a big thing for you. We talked about the fact that your father and mother were quite expert in pantomime. It's really cut off onto you. It's been passed on to you, part of the gene, I think, because you've been very prolific with pantomimes. You've even organised, I think it's called Panto Line, isn't it?
Pantomime line, yeah.
These stay there so people can catch them. They don't have to only watch them at Christmas. They're there and they're available for people to see.
Yes, they sort of they are Christmas, meant for Christmas really. And I started them in the pandemic when all the theatres were closed. So I made 3 films actually, which got into cinemas. It was just wonderful, really, adventure. But it's sort of fading away now because there's so many. Everyone's back. It's sort of back to normal, really, which is a good thing. But I'd still sell a few at Christmas because it's a cost thing. Often getting to pantos and things, So these are not expensive purchases. Stream Panto Line films.
You say you had a very sort of spasmodic education, which probably didn't involve a lot of academic work. Were you very sporty? Because I know that later on in life you run the London Marathon, and you've done it more than once.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I used to do it. Well, I haven't. When's the last one? 21. I tend to see how it's a bit like seeing how your balance is. Can I still run a marathon? So I usually have a go every 10 years, but I'm not sure I will 2031 because the first one was 81. So we'll see. But I mean, the thing about the education is interesting because as I got older, I became I became very interested in education, partly doing the scouting stuff and I suppose in some ways Blue Peter. And I really, over the years, began to learn that I'm not a great fan of formal education, be it primary, I shouldn't probably say this, be it junior or even senior school. I think successive, not governments, but it's just the pattern of it is very dull. And when you live outside it slightly, you develop different skills. And those, I think, through people like the late Ken Robinson, you suddenly realize that there are much cleverer people in the world who can do things that wasn't in the school curriculum. You've got to add up and write a bit and love Shakespeare, whatever it is. But there's more to being educated and being having different skills than that, really. So I've grown in confidence. And I know now from the kind of books I read and the kind of things I think about and write about, I'm much more broader in my understanding of the cosmos and the world we live in and philosophy. And so I don't feel undereducated now. I don't have that sort of chip I used to have about not going to school, much, really. I feel much more at ease with, the amount of knowledge I have about the world and its workings now.
I find you extremely erudite. You're very clear the way you explain things. And your work is admirable, to say the very
thank
least.
you, but it's one of those mornings. That's very sweet.
But it really is. I remember when we were in Edinburgh doing our play, you were doing another one. I mean, you're a real workaholic in that respect. The play that I saw you in Edinburgh, which I know you've done since in various places, I think it was written by your daughter, wasn't it?
It was Katie Duncan.
It's called The Dame. And I thought it was an absolutely virtuoso performance, superb in every way. And because I've directed 30-odd pantomimes, major pantomimes up and down the country, with lots of very big stars, lots of the comedy stars like Cannonball, the Chuckle Brothers, the Grumbleweeds, all sorts of people, all sorts of good shows, big shows, which were wonderful. You got the absolute essence, or your daughter did in the writing, but certainly in your performance. It was a stunning, virtuoso performance of The Dame. Tell me about it. Tell me how you feel about it.
Katie's always wanted to be a writer. And she almost, I don't even remember the actual nemesis of it, the genesis of it, but she came up with this idea of me being a pantomime because she'd obviously grown up and she delved into my parents' history. So the play has a sort of a truth attached to it that I don't want to necessarily give it away because we are thinking about doing it again because it stopped. Really, we were touring. It stopped because of COVID, really, and that's how I got into doing the films. But It's a story about a dame who's abused by his parents, and in the story, it's my parents, but my parents didn't abuse me. But so he went into being a dame to escape his father's brutality, really, and he loved his mother, but his mother walked out. Not that happened. So this is all made up, but the basis is all basis of truth. And my mother left because she was um, pregnant with another child, and at the end of the play, she's waiting at the stage door, not the mother, but the daughter, my half sister is waiting at the door. And of course, that is the true part of the story because my father met somebody in Redcar after before he met my mother, and there was a real half sister. So I think that might have been the part of the story that got Katie going, and that's how it developed. So there's half truths, but truths in it, which gives it a bit of gravitas because it's a real story.
It's not a comedy. It is amusing in parts, but it's very, very moving all the way through. It takes place in a dressing room,
Yeah.
and it's a one-man performance. You create something wonderful in that. I'm full of admiration for the bravery of the performance as well.
Got me going now, Pete. I'm going to do it again, aren't I?
Well, people who do come to see it can't fail to be stunned by what you do. It was a real eye-opener to me. I was sad for you, actually, in Edinburgh, that it was in not a particularly good venue. And so consequently, it was never a big audience that you had.
No, that wasn't a great venue. Little and Large came once to see it. But did you ever drag them? And they left at half time. So.
Oh, now that's not true because it wasn't in two parts.
No, it's true. That's a joke.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm stepping on a joke, which is not good. Well, I hope that when you do it again, it does get a massive audience wherever you do it. It's well worth it. And I think, is Katie still writing, by the way?
She is. She's just done another play, which she's trying to get going. She's done several stuff, but, for playwrights, it's even harder than being an actor, really. But she's good. She does drama workshops. She's very involved in it, really. And we've been talking about doing it again, a newer version of it, and trying to all plays. It's great when you do a play again and you have the ability to improve it and add bits that you want to add in, and so we are thinking about it. But yes, it's fascinating, and I think it's something when you do something like that, and you know this feeling. There's still that bit of you that has been an actor, and there's still a bit of you that says, I want to do something that. I mean, it's not necessarily ego-led. It's in the feeling that you can do something really well and tell a great story and impress people, and I think that's it. I say it's not about I must be really good to impress people. It's actually something you feel inside that you want to do something like that really well.
I agree totally. And I mean, luckily for me, I have been doing some acting recently, so I did get my first dream back. You mentioned Colin Baker earlier. I've toured with him 3 years now. We've done a short tour round about Christmas of A Christmas Carol, but we do it as a radio play on stage, which is quite fascinating and very nice for us because we don't actually have to learn words. We can read.
They're in front of you. Very good.
It's a very excellent idea from an actor's point of view.
Whereas we are now improvising, we're making stuff up here, all true.
And I've also got several films have come along, which we're still waiting for money in many cases. But the offers are there now, which is something which I've always hoped would happen, and maybe they will happen, and that would be wonderful if it did. That leads me on to talk about the way that you reinvent yourself, because you have done so many different things. The scouting element, you became chief scout. I was absolutely stunned and delighted when I heard that you've been appointed that. How did it come about? Were there discussions beforehand about whether you felt you could do it, whether you would do it, what you wanted to bring to it?
Yes, there was. They were interested in me, and the organization has always been quite big, the hierarchy and things, and they were struggling to find a new sort of titular leader, not someone who actually runs it, but someone who represents it as the chief scout. And I was headhunted, put on a list, and I had meetings. And the same as I mentioned earlier about Blue Peter, there's something more to doing things in life that aren't just self. All this stuff about expression and creativity. I mean, that's great and very important. But scouting was something different. It was using your personality and your history to praise and big up something that you felt had great value. And I understood that from the very beginning that scouting has and still has a great value, and yet their leadership has always been a bit like let's say pretend we still work with the BBC. It's like all those mistakes that the BBC make about the confidence about itself and what it should be and how it should have reacted to that. It's like lots of organisations that have been around a long time become so internalised and so dysfunctional. I would say that they don't work so well. So sometimes it takes an outside force and energy to take over and or to represent it, and then it comes back to life a bit. And so, to my amazement, they did offer it to me. I don't know if that's because everyone else ran away, but they did offer it to me. And my wife Annie said, "You'll hate it. You won't enjoy it because you'll have to put up with so much difficulty." And I said, "Well, that's part of it. I want to represent it because I think it's a good thing." And so I did it. And it was the centenary, so there was lots going on worldwide, and yeah, so I loved it. And I think it worked because then Bear Grylls took over. He was much more famous than me, and he had a worldwide image, and he did it for a while as well. So yeah, that's how it happened. That was it, really.
What do you think you brought to it? What do you think you gave the Scout movement in your, what was it, 4 years? You did 5 years?
Just about 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I brought, what word can I use? I brought friendliness to it. I think, when you go to a big meeting or in front of a big crowd, or you can't learn all this stuff. I think the Blue Peter experience really helped that you could actually just stand up like we're talking, and you can seem reasonably articulate, take a brief, thank the people you're supposed to thank. I'm thinking of the Queen now. Get all the names. When you're with the Queen and the Scout, you always have somebody next to you saying, "And this is so-and-so," and they whisper it to you, and then you go, "Yes, ma'am, this is so-and-so here." So you look like you can remember everyone's name, but you can't. So yeah, no, I brought that, and I know the people who actually did the scouting. They like me a lot. I'm not sure. I'm not very good at being told what to do, so I think the hierarchy wasn't too endeared with my performance. But hey, it all worked out. It was positive.
In round about the turn of the century, I think it said in your little notes that you gave me, you started producing documentary films, which that impresses me immensely, because you appear to have been able to create new ideas for yourself. I've never been an ideas man. I'm not good at it. I've tried with various things, and to be honest, none of them have really got going. I ran my own company of a video production company for 13 years, but really it didn't go anywhere. And it was one of those things. It gave me a living, but it didn't give me any money. At the end of it, there was nothing, and it was not a great success. So I'm not good at that sort of thing. You seem to have been very successful at what you've managed to do. Tell me about the documentary filming.
Yeah, well, I do try to do things, though the ones people see or come out into the open, the ones that worked, I have to say there's quite a list of things that haven't worked, but I keep coming back and trying more things, really. But those 3 series first one called In Travel Bug, and then we went to China and then to India. That was just before scouting, actually. So that led to their interest in me because they were very popular. But I didn't get a commission. I didn't do anything like that. It was the time, so my mother died in 97, and she lived with us and the 4 kids, and we sort of we always talked about all going away together, and we never did. And I wanted to, once she wasn't with us, I thought, well, why don't we go around the world, backpack around the world, and I'll film it. And Interestingly, it was the time at which all the cameras that used to be huge, great machines you had to carry on your shoulders, they all got very small, all these little Sony cameras, and you could make, fairly good quality with radio mics and things. It wasn't like you had to travel with a crew so much, really, although it's nice to have a bit of help. And so I just borrowed a bit of money, and we went off around the world for 6 months, us and Annie and I and the 4 kids. And we went to lots of different countries, and I turned up and filmed, and I'd always had a visual eye from previous stuff. And I came back with, I don't know, 100 hours of footage, went to lots of people, and they all said no. But that was the hardest part, persuading someone at the BBC, I've forgotten their name now, but suddenly just someone locked into it and said, yes, we'll do this, once they saw the footage. And that's how it happened. And of course, knowing the BBC, I thought they were onto something good because it was hugely popular. I said, well, I want to go to China now because there's no 4-person family, 4-children family go to China. And they said, well, it doesn't have to be the Duncan family. It can be, anybody can do it. So I did it again. I went off to China and I shot it. Oh, no, I didn't go off. I went to Nick Wilson at Channel 5, forget the BBC. Who was just celebrated his career the other day, and he was a man that worked at Channel 5, did Milkshake. He started so many young performers' careers off, and I was saying to him, this is about a couple of weeks ago. I said, yeah, I did the travel bakers. Yes, I saw it was fantastic, and I want to go to China. And I explained my theory that we would go as not undercover, but we didn't know what would happen in China, and he looked at the program. He said, yes, I'll finance that and pay for the post-production. And so it's with Channel 5. And then I did a further one to India. So, if you don't do that first initial thing and you go for it, nothing else can happen anyway. So you have to do that, don't you? And take a chance.
It's a lovely example of how you cope with rejection. Our business is all about rejection.
It is.
Things that you don't get and how you bounce on from that.
No, that's really interesting you say that, Pete, because I try to explain that to my kids who are singer-songwriters, Lucy and Georgia, because, so many people now are trying to, not even make it, but make a living from it and from their musicality and their talents that they develop. And it's really hard. And of course, when you're in the frame for something, particularly a big musical theatre part or something that you really want to do, that's what it's made of. That not getting it, that sense of failure, just gives you another sort of layer of confidence. The next time I will go in with the confidence that they want, or I will take a chance on that audition where I've been called back for the 3rd time and actually dominate the situation. Whatever you choose to do to get the role, the more you have a go at that, the more chance you are of being the number one, being the choice.
Do you like auditions?
No, I don't really. I don't really like them because I don't like the immediate association that, oh, I'm coming to the room and you're judging me. I try not to let that happen right at the start. So I either exude crazy overconfidence and I dominate the room or try to, but without doing it without arrogance and things, because they're not used to that really. They want you to flourish with their judgment and things. I think that's probably what's wrong with the acting profession. Let the actors do it. Never used to be directors and producers and creative. They just used to be the actors, from back to Shakespeare. There just used to be the turns.
That's right.
Perform.
Traveling vagabonds.
Yes, yeah. I think should go back to that.
That's a very good idea.
Oh, I said it. Oh, never mind.
I want to go back to one thing that you did take part in. There's a very popular television series on currently, which is Race Across the World, Celebrity Race.
Yes.
Now, you did something very similar to that way back, which was a very extraordinary journey.
Yes, it was. It was called Race Around the World. Actually, I think that's where what's his name? I've forgotten his name. He does Race Around the World. I think that's where he knew about it because I remember meeting him once, and he'd seen it, and it was organized by a guy that wanted to get as many nationalities together with the backing of Ford, and wanted to actually drive around the world. And all this was in place, and they needed someone and these weren't necessarily TV personalities, but they all had certain skills, and so the team was formed out of, say, there was a German racing driver, there was an English doctor, there was a French secretary, there was an Israeli soldier and a Palestinian rebel. So they put these mixes of people together. And I think they picked me partly because of the daring, because this was quite dangerous. And they also picked me that someone actually would be reasonably confident in front of the camera and include others, because in other words, if you film this and you don't get all the stuff going on. And so, we set off, drove through the Channel Tunnel, the service tunnel, that little tunnel, with our Ford cars, drove to Paris, drove across Europe.
Just before you go on with that, let me just set it up, because what sprung to my mind immediately when I saw the title was, well, that's crazy, because it was driving from the UK to New York. Well, there's 3,000 miles of water. Well, so obviously you weren't going to go that way.
No. It was. I've still got a lovely map of it all. It was working it out, and how they were going to do it, and it's never really been done. And it was you're going up to Siberia. We drove to Siberia, and you drive up the rivers because it's the only thing that's flat. And we got to a place called Lavriento, right on the coast. And then we had to take a big machine across the Bering Straits, which eventually sank. We ended up we got a place called Nome, where the Iditarod ends. And some people lasted, some people didn't. It was I don't want to equate it, but it's a bit imagine like going to war would be without the killing, if you like. You just had to get to this place and be there. And of course, the Russia bit was the most fascinating because it was during Glasnost. And when we got to Moscow, or Yeltsin was in power, it was a very different feel, and people were very open at the antithesis now. And they wanted to show you the gulags, they wanted to show you their culture. It was, and all the people that looked after us were the ex. What are they called now? They're called FSB now. What the old
the Stasi and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were the guys that looked after us, and they had guns, because the Eastern Russia's like the Wild East, crazy people. And, we needed to be protected. And it was a proper, it wasn't like Race Around the World. If you lose a couple of people on that, there'll be trouble.
Yes.
It was great. A real lesson in living and learning in life.
Was it foolhardy, do you think, to take part?
No, I don't think people were callous, but there were risks. Even the Russian soldiers in their trucks, they lose so many people when the ice breaks. It was part of my psyche. I had that adventurous, and I liked it, but it was psychologically tough, but a good experience to come through. We eventually got to New York. It was an achievement, a real achievement, and taught me much about the world, which led me to these challenges with my kids, really, with confidence.
Peter, it's been absolutely fabulous talking to you, and the most enjoyable 45 minutes I've had in a long time.
Oh, well, that's sweet. You were so nice about the play. I'm going to have to do it again, I'll tell you.
This has been a great pleasure, and I'm sure lots of people will enjoy listening to it. Thanks very much indeed for your time, Pete.
Thank you too, Peter. I really enjoyed talking to you. I've got lost in this conversation. It's been wonderful.
Well, I do hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I look forward to welcoming Peter back later in the year. And you can see him in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, opening in Manchester on February the 28th and touring until July the 18th. And of course, his pantos are on sale at pantoonline.co.uk. There are lots of exciting pods coming up on a fortnightly basis, including Fraser Hines, Wendy Padbury, Bonnie Langford, Anthea Turner and Mark Benton, to mention just a few. Please don't forget to comment, or better still, subscribe if you can, and help to grow the Peter Purves Podcast community. Take care, everyone. Until the next time, adieu.